Hello, this is Ben Television News Roundup, a compilation of major stories in the week ending. I'm Tunde Adabi. Thank you for being part of the program today. On the show, we're taking a look at the just concluded African Financial Review. African and British entrepreneurs have described Africa as a continent with a lot of potentials which remained untapped and underutilized. The entrepreneurs who conversed at the 2015 African Financial and Investment Review stated that African diaspora in the UK should explore the opportunities on the continent. The event was addressed by Lord Victor Adebowale CBE, a member of the British House of Lords, and Alice Toshio, the chairman of Ben Television, and other entrepreneurs in the United Kingdom.
It's a pleasure to see this high number of delegates who are mostly kind of Africans or friends of Africa, Africa as a continent. Well, we're basically going to talk about investment on the African continent, opportunities available, and of course challenges on the African continent. For me as a diasporan who work and operate business here in the United Kingdom, I have decided to use two templates as I make a quick remark about today's event. Africa gives you up to roughly 910 million potential users, customers, clients that you may call on the African continent. And in the next 10 years or 20, Africa will be, without any doubt, the #1 continent in terms of population. Now, talking of that, of course, then I narrow it down to Nigeria, which is the #1 African economy on the African continent. But again, this country, more or less, for those who are absolutely willing to invest on the African continent, is to talk about the potential on the African and from the Nigerian perspective. For those who are Nigerians, more than 170 million. But then again, you have to look at what are the ingredients for anybody who wants to go and invest on the African continent. For me, looking at the audience that we have here, which is at least 70% Africans, it shows that when we read the global news presently, many of the Western world are heading to Africa. Is that correct? Yes. Now, if there's something wrong on the African continent, they won't be rushing there. So for Africans who are here and who have the opportunity, indeed, to go to Africa, please do the right thing to join and become an investor in that place. Talking of Africa, talking of Nigeria, 170 million. Again, I want to narrow down to a state which I have permission to speak on their behalf, which is the Gateway State. It's a state that gives you more than at least 50 million potential users, clients, customers for your products. It's a state that is surrounded by other states, including Lagos. But apart from that, it's a state that gives you the opportunity to move whatever it is, your goods and services from Nigeria, from Ogun State into Nigeria. So Ogun State more or less are the next, and they surround Lagos State. But apart from that, is a state that have abandoned land, as I said. And please, for those who are willing to invest in Nigeria, whatever it is in whatever industry you want to get into, do speak to me personally, and we are able to provide that necessary ingredient you need to set up a business in Nigeria. But apart from that, the beauty as well is now the Nigerian government have introduced a lot of measures. So I'm not speaking now on behalf of the Nigerian government, but as a Nigerian who have business in Nigeria and business here, one need to take into consideration, and I believe that we have Jide Yanu right here as well, who is one of the moderators that can guide each and every one of us who really want to invest in Nigeria. And you remember I'm only using Nigeria as a template because this is an African investment symposium and conference. So ladies and gentlemen, not to take too much of your time, as I said, Ogun State, the government, they are willing to work with individual or corporate institutions that want to invest in Nigeria, from allocation of land to company registration, and of course for those who can repatriate their gains, they are support and guide you doing that. Coming back to London, where we are, and that is us. So I'm only calling on the people here, the delegates who are Africans, to calculate how we really want to change and how we want our government to change economically, socially, and politically. And we have the strength, we have the number. The question is, do we have the investment will to change government to put the policy there for us. So I hope at the end of this conference, we can come out with something strong that we can take into 2016. The UK government is putting something together. For us who are here, we keep reading different views and opinions that the government are doing, but the diaspora really have a major role to play on making Africa indeed the #1 choice, not just for the Western world, but for Africans in the diaspora. Once again, I thank you very much and welcome to this conference. Have a wonderful good evening. Thank you.
Of course, very many of us are aware of the global economy meltdown, the crisis that happened. But the good thing about Africa is Africa was able to withstand and resist this meltdown. While Europe, between 2013 and 2015, in fact, 2013 was 0.0% GDP growth in Europe, Africa was an average of 4.8%. And Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire, they were operating at about 6.7, 7.8 GDP growth, when UK and the rest of Europe were operating on 0.1%. 2014, in Europe we had 1.3% GDP growth. We have 5.3% of minimum across Africa. In 2015, we had, now David Cameron is talking about UK GDP growing about 2.1, and everybody's excited, proud that, oh yes, the government is doing very well, GDP is hitting about 2.1, 2.2. But in Africa, GDP is hitting about 7.8%. And that's quite some amazing growth. And what are these drivers of Africa's economy that has made it grow this resistance? Private external flows, i.e. investment and remittances. People like Ranjiv, what they are doing, people like David Smith, people like Mr. Foxman, and the huge amount of investment going from the diaspora into Africa is great. And foreign direct investment is above and more than 75.5 billion US dollar. And foreign direct investment target consumer goods and services. And this is far, in the past we used to look at mineral resources, people from Europe, America going to explore our resources, but now there is diversification and there's less of mineral resources exploration, but people are looking into consumer goods and services. Do you remember when Nigeria's GDP was replaced? What actually shut down Nigeria's GDP was actually the service sector. By the time they put the telecommunications, Nollywood, and the whole rest of them together, that economic shut off and it overtook that of South Africa. Agriculture is also boosting Africa's economy greatly. Now, this is where you and I come to play. Remittances to developing economies in 2015 was put at $440 billion. And it is estimated that, according to World Bank's Migration and Development Brief, by 2020 is going to reach $666 billion US in remittances coming from you and I to developing economies, including Africa. Okay, let me quickly say that the countries that have a large chunk of these remittances are, guess what? Nigeria, India, China, and the Philippines. These four countries occupy the countries where the chunk, a greater chunk of these remittances are going. And by 2020, they will hit $644 billion US. And the question you and I are probably going to ask is, what do we see with these remittances we're sending home? We tend not to see anything on ground. They keep asking us to send in more money, more money, more money, more money. And we keep spending, spending, and we're working ourselves out, and we're sending money, and then there's nothing to show for it. Is it not high time we began to look at putting this money into some bond and invest in Africa, invest in the people back home, rather than send money to them and they use it to enjoy life?
The notion of a rising tide lifting all ships, the trickle-down theory, well, we're standing in a city in which the evidence for that being true is somewhat lacking. And certainly if you're from Nigeria, in fact most of the African countries, the gap between rich and poor is frankly of staggering proportions. The economist J.K. Galbraith once pointed out that the business of business is business, and he was wrong then, and he's wrong now. If you look at the history of the corporation, the American corporation, it was actually established because it was impossible for one person to build a barn on their own. And so what happened was you had to form a legal entity which consisted of more than one person in order to build the barn, and each person had a share in the outcome of that barn, but it was actually for the community benefit. Over the years, that entity has become the corporation, and a body legal in corporate acting as a person, but not always acting like a normal, civilized, psychologically well-balanced person. In fact, in many countries, including this one, and certainly in Africa, it behaves like a psychopath. So I'm not here to simply say, well done to those of you that are wealthy, and for those that you want to be wealthy, get on with it. Because I think that would be wrong and dishonest. What I will say is that the creation of wealth is important. Without the wealth creators, and by which I mean cash. In fact, if you look at the meaning of wealth, it means more than just money, just so that we are clear about it. The wealth creators amongst us, the people who have an entrepreneurial spark, the people who go forward ahead of others, should bring others with them. And if you want to know why there are so few people of African descent and Caribbean descent in the leading places in this country, indeed the City of London, it's because those people that have made a lot of money and have a lot of power. If you were to ask me what the opportunity for investment in housing in London is, it's clearly in the rental market. If you look at the housing policy in London, it used to be all about home ownership. As rental properties, renting has increased, 1 in 5 properties in London are now rented. The opportunities are in renting. That all of you that are in a position to make money in this country and in London, and there's a reason why the African diaspora is in London, 1.8 million of us are in London. It's because London has a stable legal system, a stable social infrastructure, and you can go about your business pretty much free from the interference of government, both local and national. That's why they're here. It's also why London has more billionaires than any other major city in the world. So London is booming. There's not a problem with London. Where I think there is a problem, and where I think there could be a problem, is if you, my brothers and sisters, take the view that London is another place in which to focus only on individual wealth without supporting, encouraging, or engaging with the community at large. That's what I think. In fact, that's what I know. So I would encourage you to think about wealth creation in the context of its society in which that wealth is being created. I would encourage you to think as much about sharing as much as taking.
How many of you belong to your local Chamber of Commerce? Last year I asked this question in the room, and if you're a diasporan living in the UK, have you registered with your local Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria, in your home country? Have any of you? It should be one of the first things you leave here and do, because it's when you are in contact, as the Lord who left says, with people who are credible, that your business will gain credibility. You will gain quality information rather than what you read generally. Another thing that have been pointed out is the issue with regards to the growth of the service sector. So what that means is you have to have a level of local knowledge. So what's the point in sitting down reading your business books and strategy here if when you go over into the country in which you want to operate it, you have no local knowledge of the employment legislation, of the corporate legislation? You must get somebody who knows what they're talking about and who is experienced. Experience is the most important thing. You can obviously be novel, you can have brilliant ideas, but to turn those ideas into money, into a cash flow, you have to make sure they are secured. You have to make sure that those who are putting forward your application have local experience. Within our practice, I'm glad to say, yes, we're celebrating our 10th anniversary. It's soon going to be 11th in the next couple of months. But within our practice, we have lawyers who are qualified in the Congo, qualified in Nigeria, qualified in Italy. And it's important that you, when you're going to see somebody who has a legal qualification for professional advice, that you do meet them in the formal setting. If you want to do business seriously, start seriously. You can obviously start in cafes, but if you're sitting down and wanting to have a meeting, do it in a formal setting. Set out your expectation. Make sure that person is qualified, experienced.
The investors who are here is that they really need to be realistic about what they think they can achieve. They are members of the diaspora, so by and large they'll be familiar, either at first or second hand, with the countries in which they're talking about, primarily Nigeria here, of course, which is not a country I'm particularly involved with. So they need to be realistic about what they think they can achieve. I think it's often the case that the best kind of investor is an investor that can bring some human capital to a business as well as just the money, because often the margins are so thin on some of the projects that people are talking about that they would not convince or impress a pure financial investor. In other words, you won't get a passive investor putting money into some of these projects, but you might find someone who's going to put some people on the ground as well.
Myself, my name is Emeka Anyau. I'm the publisher of C-Hub magazine. I'm so excited to see what is going on here. I see that the event is one that connects me with my past, with my present and the future. I believe there's a future here, and that's why I'm here. I'm so proud to be here.
This is a great opportunity for African, Nigerian entrepreneurs to actually look at the market and see the opportunity for themselves and take the opportunity. It's just like when European companies many years ago were not coming to Africa at all. But MTN came to Africa and they came up with an idea which actually gave them a very, very good return. So like that, you just have to see the opportunity in a different format. And is the glass actually half full or half empty? And it's how you perceive the opportunity. And this is a great chance for Nigeria to seek the opportunity and develop it. The Nigerian government has actually their legislation. They have actually stopped flaring. The key thing here is finding the right partners who can actually monetize the opportunity and develop it. And at the moment, there's a huge opportunity there, again, providing the domestic market and cross-border trade within the West African region.
Well, look, I think more developers should go into Africa and develop that country.
Where are they going to get the funds from?
Well, look, there are funds everywhere. You know, you could get the funds from the banks here. I do a lot of work for the banks here, as you know, and the banks here, if the fundamentals are right, they would lend. And so you could borrow monies, you could go into Africa, a virgin land, and develop the land. You're going to have buyers. I mean, Lagos, as you know, is a great place to invest. Abuja is an amazing place to invest. Port Harcourt. I mean, I do a lot of repossessions in South Africa for the moment, and I know some of my clients here in England are investing in South Africa. So that pretty much answers the question.
It's been fabulous. What it's done is brought together some very thoughtful people. You know, there's a lot of networking going on in the African community, but actually getting the level of people who are looking at serious investment into Africa, not just at the large scale, but also at relatively small levels, who are responding very positively to some of the things that we've talked about this evening. It's very, very interesting. If you think of the village, and the village is a long way away, and it's not just a long way away, it's a long way from the road. And there's a historic issue with how do we connect that village. We can wait until the road is built to the village and then we can start doing something. Or we can start with what does this village produce now and why do we need the road and how can we create the wealth in the village to make the road itself. And that comes down to looking at the passion fruit, the mangoes, the tomatoes, the other things that can be produced in that place. Who knows, it may be diamonds and gold, but it may also be fruit and vegetables. And then build that community. So maybe it needs a school, maybe it needs all sorts of things. I don't know. The people who come from that village know. In my village, they don't have. Therefore, we need to take. And that's where bringing the diaspora together enables people who come from the same place to look at the same problems and create new solutions by looking at what's available here in the UK or more widely in the world.
This event is well organized. The event has brought in a lot of diaspora. What I feel is that a lot of speakers, what they've said are good things. However, what also it needs is a way and a means of doing things. It's like companies coming here to preach, but how do you actually make it work? This is where we don't have a system to make it work. One of the problems that I have been spending time in Africa since 1978, the problem I find that when you go and try to do something in Africa, there is no one window clearance. By that, if I'm an investor, they send me from department to department, ministers, they should respect the foreign investor, whether it's diaspora, it doesn't matter, but he's from overseas bringing in investment. They should arrange for you to meet one person who is responsible for you and get all your, instead of you going to 50 different departments, and I think that's one valid thing. Secondly, I think also that if they can make the systems easier and followable and learn to accept emails rather than everything in writing by letters, and then you want to rubber stamp and notarized. All these things in today's age of technology, I think is very time consuming, but we really need to be realistic that Africa is a great continent. Yes, everybody is running. Why is Europeans running? Everybody say they're running because no growth economy in Europe at the moment. So Africa is the story. But when they go to Africa, we must also understand that Africa needs to be respected. We need to create manufacturing in Africa. If we don't create manufacturing in Africa, the youth, which by 2030 you're going to have higher number of youths than India. The highest number of youths in the world are going to be in Africa. If we don't create jobs for them, we are going to create a society which is going to be very unhappy and they're going to be doing wrong things.
I feel very proud. I feel very elated. I feel very thankful to God. This was a program we began to plan as far back as August. It's been like a one-man run show, no help, no support. I had to put things together. I had to rely on the strength of God. I had to rely on people. I had to rely on friends. But because we've built a whole network of people who have trusted African Partnership Development, our organization is to bring people together, is to make people network, is to grow them, is to develop them, is to make them have a sense of feeling, is to make them be the leader and the owner of their own destiny. And so over time, over years, people have come to trust us. And that's why we keep having increased participation in every program we do. This one is to make Africans in the diaspora understand that there's so much money in Africa. Africa is a big, strong, emerging market. And we should not sit in the UK, moan about this, moan about that. We should take our destiny in our hand. We should go to Africa. We should exploit, we should explore, and not leave it to foreigners.
This is all we have for you on the program this week. Thank you for being part of the program. Do have a very good week ahead of you. Bye. as part of our continued efforts to reach the African and other ethnic communities in the United Kingdom with greater impacts and create the platform to hear your silent and unheard views in this hugely growing community in the United Kingdom, our channel, Ben TV, presents to you another live current affairs television program. Our focus on the program is to review and discuss issues around the diaspora community in the UK. The program offers you that unrestricted voice on issues affecting you in the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Another business segment of Dialogue in Diaspora, 2 to 3 p.m. every Monday. But guess what? You can be part of the program. Just send us an email at bentelevisionuk@gmail.com. Dialogue in Diaspora, your voice, your opinion on our TV.